Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and by now we pretty much have confirmed that all 5 members, or pretty much all 5 members of the Black Order are going to get new uniforms. Now it's still unclear which ones are going to get Transcendence or Tier 3, probably there's going to be a mixture of those, but they're definitely going to get some sort of increase in their power level. They're going to get better than they were when they get these new uniforms, but how good are they? That's really the question that I want to try to answer today. Now, normally when I do this, I take these characters into World Boss Ultimate and I test them out in there. But for the sake of this, I just want to do a quick test first in Shadowland because some of these characters have a full, sort of like a semi-full build. He's got a CTP of Destruction, got some Uru, but some of them, like she's level 60 with a 180 proc. Proxima is level 70 with no obelisk. So Proxima and Cull have no obelisk. And then Supergiant and Ebony have a proc obelisk. And then Corvus has a CTP. So I thought it'd be a little bit fun. I did make very little Shadowland content. This is not quite Shadowland content. This is stage 61, which is relatively low given how much Pierce I have. Now, Pierce does affect Shadowland. It definitely does. Now, I do think these characters could still do stage like 50 without any Pierce. It doesn't affect it that much, but it does affect it. But you'd have to give them a full build for them to clear stage 50. So we're going to start off with Corvus since he was the first character to be announced, and we're just going to see, we're going to look at his skills now. We're going to take a look and sort of remind ourselves of what this character looks like because it's pretty rough. So I think his 5th skill, we're going to summon the clones, and then I think his 5th skill is probably the best skill to proc on. It's the little AoE. His 3rd skill is really nice because it's an iframe with paralysis. His 2nd skill is kind of nice too. Then we're going to go back to 5, no proc there, so we try to proc on 3. Still no proc, there we go. So, you know, like he's an old character, right? Old type character. You can see we don't get characters anymore that have summons. The Chitauri look really cool when they summon him, when he summons them. But part of me hopes that we don't get the Chitauri back. Given how short his cooldowns are, but also given how few hits he has, like I think he has less than 10 hits on any one of his skills, right? Okay, maybe his 3rd skill has more than 10 hits. But you see that 5th skill has like barely 10 hits. So he's going to need to get a lot more. He's going to need to get a lot more hits on his skills in order to make good on a CTP of energy or, you know, some of these CTPs nowadays that we use. The really cool thing is he has a lot of residual damage. You can see the glaive flies around on his 1st skill a lot. So if you cast it multiple times, you can see that you get multiple glaives flying around. That's really cool. It kind of reminds me of Nightcrawler and how he uses those swords. So it's very similar there, but yeah, you can see he's kind of struggling. We'll sort of just play this out until we get to the half bar of MODOK, but it took him almost half of the full time. Now he could definitely still go higher than 61, and I could give him a leadership and all that stuff, but this is with Pierce, so it's pretty rough. You know, these characters obviously need massive reworks in order for them to be good. Now, Cull, interestingly enough, he has a couple of really good weapons available to him. So he has guard break immunity already, and then he has accumulation. So I can actually just accumulate a bunch of damage here. And look at this. Even though he has no proc, he has no... Oh, we're going to die here to damage here. But if we don't die... Look at that. He's going to heal. He's going to heal back up, and he can apply all defense down. And he can spam his 1 and 2 after he uses his 3. It's this really cool effect where he sort of teleports around like a Naruto or sort of anime character. I really like what they did on his 3rd skill. So you want to accumulate a little... Oh, we lost our immunity. We don't want to accumulate without immunity. But yeah, you can see here, he's actually a lot faster than Corvus without having a proc. Now, part of this has to do with the all defense down, but also another part of it has to do with the accumulation. So if they keep the accumulation on him, he should be good to go, right? They just need to bump up his damage. He's got lots of AoE, lots of multi-hit skills. You can see there, he's well above, you'd be surprised, right? But he's well above 30 seconds faster than Corvus with no obelisk at all, no proc whatsoever. So he's got the guard break immunity, he's got the healing, he's got the accumulation. Arguably, he needs the least. He just needs a damage bump, and he could be a serious threat as a universal villain. Whereas some of these other universal villains from the Black Order need some serious reworks. Speaking of serious reworks, I think the only character that I did use accidentally was Supergiant. I used her before I realized that I wanted to make this video, but believe me, believe me, Supergiant needs like a top to bottom rework. Her skills are very cool. I'll show her off in the skill preview at the end. Her skills are very cool, but very much in need of a tune-up. So we'll see Proxima next year. Proxima has built-in pierce, or sorry, built-in penetration, excuse me. Not built-in pierce. She has built-in penetration, and she has all defense down on her third skill, but it doesn't ignore immunity. Now, what she lacks in, you know, she doesn't have any healing. She barely has iframes. She has like, well, she has some iframes here where she jumps back briefly. But what she lacks, she makes up for. What she lacks in those effects, she makes up for in just having a lot of multi-hit skills. You can see here, she'd be a really good character for, like, a Judgment would actually be really good if she dealt elemental damage. I don't think she's going to deal elemental damage, which is kind of a shame. But you can see that she can take advantage so much of chain hit, right? Because you can see she's racking up all these hits. The problem is procking. You basically want to proc on like 4 cancel 5 or 3 cancel 5, which is not bad for an energy. I'll show you what that looks like here. So you would do 4, and then see there's a kind of a delay on those spears that she throws out with the 4th skill. But basically every single one of Proxima's skills is a reinvention of just throwing the spears. You're going to throw them sideways, you're going to throw them straight on, you're going to sort of throw them at an angle, you're going to rain them down from the sky. I still really love her 5th skill for what it does and how cool it looks, where the spears just pop out of nowhere and just completely skewer the enemy. And you can see there MODOK is just reeling, but you can see she locks the enemies down, right? So her damage is somewhere between Corvus's. It's better than Corvus's, and that's without a proc, again, without an obelisk whatsoever. Better than Corvus's, worse than Cull's, but Cull took damage. Corvus had to chase the enemy around to paralyze them with the 3rd skill. Proxima didn't have to do anything. She keeps them at a distance, and she just hammers them with spears until they're dead. So they all have a pretty distinct gameplay, which is pretty cool. And I think Ebony is sort of a mixture between Corvus and Proxima. And Ebony probably needs the least amount of help, I would say, or buffs, because he already has his uniform buff, which is super clutch as a buff for characters in PvP and PvE. If he gets a Transcendent, I swear I pressed one of his skills. I was gonna say the only real problem with Ebony is he's very squishy. He's extremely squishy. But you think about it. He's got the uniform buff, right? The passive support buff. He's got the 45% energy attack leadership. He's got mind control, right? So he really has a ton of effects, and he's got good damage. So if he gets a Transcendence or a tier 3, look at that, 10 seconds of mind control. That's brutal. They're still mind controlled, guys. They're still mind controlled. Oh, I think I don't know how Bullseye got out of it, but it's okay because Bullseye's dead now. So yeah. But yeah, 10 seconds of mind control. Look at that. Lots of AoE, lots of hits. Boom, boom, boom. Leadership, support. He's going to be a really good character for World Boss Legend if he gets a Transcendence or a Tier 3. And we don't really have any reason to think that they're not going to get that, but I just don't want to assume. But he'll be, you know, he's going to be... Oh, don't die. This is his only problem. He's super fragile. But as far as... I don't think he has any defensive skills. I think he's got like a guard hit or just iframe. I honestly think he just has iframes and mind control. But yeah, oh, I didn't want to kill them. So yeah, see, his damage is actually a lot closer to Cull Obsidian's. He is buffing himself. He does have a 200% damage proc, and he is buffing himself with a 45% attack lead. But man, if he gets a Transcendence or a Tier 3, he's going to be so good for World Boss Legend, because he's not only going to... You can not only use him as a buff against Null, not against Mephisto, but you can use him as a buff against Null. You can use him as a leadership against Null or Mephisto. So really, really good stuff. Last but not least, we've got Supergiant. And Supergiant, oh boy. Are you ready for what you're about to see? These are the bygone eras of characters created in 2016. So her first skill looks like an auto attack. I kid you not. Her first skill legit looks like someone else's auto attack. So she basically has 4 skills. Her second skill looks like someone else's auto attack. That's not an iframe, ladies and gentlemen. So she basically has 3 auto attacks. She has her literal auto attack, and then she has 2 variations on an auto attack. So we're talking, she has fewer skills technically than Victorious. Victorious has 4 active skills. In my opinion, Supergiant has 3. Okay, she applies silence. That's pretty cool. So what's her third skill? She has an iframe and she buffs herself. So she literally has 3 auto attack skills and 1 skill that's just a buff. Now, we've seen what just a buff can do for some characters depending on how they scale it, a la Luke Cage. His third skill, Warming Up, is just a buff, but it gives him damage immunity, and it gives him accumulation, which is 15% attack per 1% damage that he takes. So if they're going to give Supergiant some kind of crazy buff like that with immunity, I'm down. But if the buff is just going to be 25% guaranteed dodge and 40% mind damage, it's going to have to be like 400% mind damage to scale the way that Luke Cage's accumulation scale, because his bumps his attack up by up to 225%, which is crazy. So, okay, she has 0 skills thus far. Her 4th skill, a little bit of an iframe, and then she summons Black Bolt. This is one of the coolest skills in the game because you do get to see Black Bolt, and he was mind controlled by Supergiant in the comics, so this is very comics accurate. And not only do you summon Black Bolt, but he does skills. You can see there he does multiple skills. He doesn't just, sometimes he stands there punching you, but he does his 5th skill, he does his 1st skill, he does his 3rd skill. He does multiple skills. It's really cool. He doesn't change uniforms depending on which uniform you have for Black Bolt. It stays the same. It's always the default, but it's not bad. And then we have her 5th skill. Now, let me remind you, when this 5th skill came out, it was one of the best skills in the game. It was an amazing striker skill. It did crazy damage, and it also made her very, very good as a playable character for a lot of the content, because it did a lot of damage. It's really cool. She summons copies of herself. They're not actual clones, but, you know, copies of herself, and then she sends out these 3 gigantic orbs that will crush you in the middle. So there was some targeting issues. You know, you didn't want to be on the edge. You didn't want to summon it kind of on the edge because it wouldn't quite pincer the character. So you really wanted to be, you know, right in front of them, so it would clip them right in the middle, and they would get hit by all 3 of the orbs rather than just 1 or 2. But yeah, Supergiant basically has 2.5 skills. So I expect a top to bottom rework for her. But she might end up having the most beautiful skills just because of the type of character that she is, right? She's sort of like Scarlet Witch in a way, or Jean Grey in a way. Like, she's got that mind ability, and she you know, she's here, she's there, the Emma Frost thing, and those skills usually end up looking really, really nice. And they'll just need to have the elemental damage to boot to make her strong enough to, you know, compete with characters. I think her passives are okay. Guaranteed dodge. Yeah, the increased damage to the summons is bad, obviously, but yeah. That's pretty bad. 5-second silence on a 10-second cooldown is not that bad. That's not much different than Moonstone's passive. And then her leadership's not bad. It's a debuff leadership for 20 seconds every 25, and that's a solid PvP leadership. I wouldn't be surprised if this applies to Black Order allies, and then they gave her that debuff immunity leadership like Luke Cage has. So that's my little recap of these characters. They are definitely in dire need of a buff, which is why myself and a lot of other players in the game are super excited to see. These characters are way too cool and costly to not be much, much stronger. So they're finally going to get their due. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Who is going to end up being the strongest? Cast your vote down below in the comments. Give your thoughts on which one you think is going to get the biggest rework and is going to have the biggest come up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.